Okay, another question about Kevin Stefanski. This comes from Dan in Chattanooga. Hey, Mary Kay, what do you think Kevin Stefanski learned from this past season to get better at play calling? Or just in general, what do you think he learned from this past season? I think both of those are. I think there's two prongs to it.
Well, I think that he probably looked out there, watched that tape, and realized that he does need to add some talent, a few weapons on that offense. I think that's probably one of the first things, and those weapons have to fit and align well with Deshaun Watson. And there's a certain kind of skill set that you need to flourish and to succeed with Deshaun Watson. You've got to be able to, to stay alive and be really, really good on the scramble drill. You've got to be able to play with a dual threat quarterback and know that that you have to be ready for anything at any given moment. And you've got to be able to have the instincts to play in that kind of offense. And same thing with your offensive line. They've got to be ready for whatever comes. They have to be ready to hold the block maybe a little bit longer. They're probably going to have, a few more shorter options, in the event that he starts scrambling around. You've got to have somebody that's going to be there for you so you're not always taking that sack. I think he learned that he's got to make sure that Deshaun Watson feels comfortable with what is being called. And I think that's vitally important. I think Deshaun has to be super, super comfortable with the scheme, the play calling. Do they need to do more, up tempo? Do they need to do more no huddle, more RPOs, more designed runs, whatever the case may be? He's got to be a big part of that. He's got to feel super, super comfortable with the way the game is being called and the scheme that is in place. So I've been saying this in my Hey MKs and on here and everywhere else that, he's got to be really upfront and honest about that. I do think that players sometimes are afraid to speak their mind and they sometimes don't want to rock the boat. And I know I've seen this on both sides of the ball, but I think that, and we've talked about this before, when he says he's got to have that man-to-man talk with Kevin, it's a two-way street. They both have to lay their cards out on the table. And if you see something that you don't like, if Kevin wants to do something a certain way or thinks that a certain player is the right player for that role, and Deshaun doesn't think that, he's got to speak up about that. He can't worry about, ticking anyone off or whatever the case may be. If he thinks they need to bring in Brandon Cooks, tell him you need to bring in Brandon Cooks. You know what I mean? Like, you just have to you have to say it now. Now is the time that you've got to be really upfront and honest about what you think should be happening.
Well, and that goes too with what we just talked about with, you're not going to change your quarterback. Deshaun's got the power, right? If he wants to wield it, he's got, if you look at the power dynamic, it's Deshaun. He's the quarterback. He's the highest paid player on the team. He's got the largest guaranteed contract in NFL history. If Deshaun wants something, his voice matters. And there's, certainly the Browns can sit down with him and say, listen, this is why we think this is a bad idea. This is, we disagree with you. Let's talk this out. But ultimately, Deshaun shouldn't be shy about saying what he wants because, this is his football team. And again, he's, of all the people that we talk about in this discussion, he's the one who's the most secure.
Absolutely. And, I haven't tweeted these out yet. I will at some point today, but the Hays that I did do for Sunday and that I posted at 5 a.m. this morning, I do talk in there. The first Hay is about, would Brandon Cooks be a better trade target for the Browns than DeAndre Hopkins? Well, whichever player Deshaun Watson would want out of those two would be the guy that you would want to go pursue. And maybe it's neither. But if he feels like, hey, we need a Brandon Cooks, then they need to go see if they can get Brandon Cooks. Okay. And both of those players have been bandied about in trade rumors, discussions, talks, reports, not just rumors. Those two guys have a decent chance of getting traded. And Deshaun has had success with both of them. So, if he feels